Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies and characters that make us feel seen. And oh boy, we have a co-host on today, a filmmaker I've wanted to have on for. It's crazy to know that they're so young in their early 20s, and I've already wanted to have them on this show for years because their sixth feature film is now out into the world. You may know them from such titles as So Vam, Bad Girl Boogie, T-Blockers, Satanic Panic, Carnage for Christmas, or their newest, The Serpent's Skin. Alice Maio Mackay, what else do the people need to know about you before we get started, in addition to your already prolific filmography?
Oh wow. I think that covers everything up. Maybe that I guess I'm a prolific Twilight fan, which I guess helps set things up.
Excellent, excellent. No,
Jump
that's
the
it.
gun.
That's it. Thank you for planting this. We're gonna plant that and we're gonna pay off that soon. But I guess I wanted to hear you start with Serpent Skin. Tell us a little bit about that. Let's forefront with your work and how it has been. How far did your travels take you putting this out, and what has the trip been like getting this to the world?
It's been really incredible. It's had like the largest like cinematic run. We had like 23 cities in America, which is cool. And I guess for
Yeah.
me as well, like being in Australia, every kind of trip is like a long trip. Like to get to London for BFI was like 30 hours. Which was not fun. I mean, like it was fun to be there, but not fun to get there. Um, and then I went to San Fran, which I'd never been to before. That was fun.
Oh,
New York,
wonderful.
I love LA. That was kind of the main kind of time. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, I feel like in the experiences I've had traveling internationally, anytime I met an Australian fellow traveler, I feel like they were in like their third of 6 months of traveling because it kind of feels like if you're gonna go all that
You
way,
go. Yeah.
yeah, you really gotta go.
I was in London for like 4 days after like
Okay.
traveling 30 hours and then straight to New York. So I don't know if I really, I don't know, got the most out of it, but
Wasn't present necessarily for sound mind and body, but
yeah.
able to get the work out there. Well, tell us about Serpent Skin. Tell the folks at home about Serpent Skin. I've talked about it. Let's hear it directly from the mouth of the source.
So it's a supernatural like romance film, kind of inspired by Greg Araki's work and also like early 2000s like CW shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Ooh.
Charmed, kind of like soapy, like melodramatic about like a trans woman who like moves to a new town and then she meets this like witch. They both have supernatural powers. They fall in love, but then there's like a demonic tattoo that's kind of unleashed by one of them, like inner demons. There's like a hot goth emo boy, kind of reminiscent of like, I don't know, Black Veil Bride, Sleeping with Sirens kind of vibes. And
Mhm.
then shit hits the fan. Yeah.
Well, in the more of your work I watch and the more I read and listen to you talk about your work, I feel like the thing that it comes to the biggest forefront, like despite the sort of genre trappings of the work that you make, like there are vampires, there are there's blood, there's practical effects, there's things like that, there are witches. I've come to think of you very much as a romantic filmmaker. Kind of at the heart of it all, and hearing you, like you mentioned, Greg Araki, and listening to you on a podcast interview where you did talking about his movie Splendor, like the sort of like romantic, tender resonance of Araki with you and the way that he speaks to you, and that very much connecting to the seeds that you planted at the beginning of the conversation in regards to Twilight. And so I wanted to hear from you what how that assessment fits you in your estimation of a romantic creator.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of like grew up inspired by like these like melodramatic things and like drawn to like the romance of things. Like I was a theater kid as well, so just like the theatricalness of like romance and these like romantic stories, like I don't know, like Dracula, even going back to like classic literature and like Frankenstein, it feels like very, I don't know, like love is like the most important thing in these
Mm-hmm.
like worlds. So then like when like that young adult like boom hit with like Mortal Instruments, Twilight, like Beautiful Creatures, it was kind of like two of like my favorite like worlds colliding. I was born a creator from there, I guess.
Well, you and you're in your early 20s. So when did let's get to the Twilight of it now. When how old were you when Twilight hits you? And does it hit you first as books or does it hit you first as movies?
It was first as books. I
Okay.
remember my parents were like, you have to like read them before you're allowed to like see them. I don't know. I feel like reading them like they're more like graphic than like the movies. But I was 8 when I read the first Twilight book,
Uh-huh.
and then I was kind of just obsessed. Like I remember like the ballet studio, like reading that part so vividly in like the back of a car for the first time. And I was like, I had some event on and I was like, I cannot like leave. I need to like finish Twilight. I just gripped. So
Once you finished the books, was it straight into the movies then?
yeah, I feel like I did. I could be wrong with the timeline, but I feel like I did a book and then a movie and then a book
Okay,
and then a movie, or maybe it would be like two books and then two movies. I love the movies. I think the books will always just like have that extra special place in my heart, just because
sure.
like I discovered them first and just like the vividness of like remembering where I was when that happened. Whereas the movies, like I watched them and I'm like, yeah, they're amazing, but I didn't have like the same
Mhm.
physical connection.
Well, tell me about the connection to Bella Swan. What does Bella mean to you? How was the experience of witnessing Bella? Like, as someone who I feel like the romance does so much come through in the core of your work, again, regardless of the trappings of whatever genre it might be, Twilight almost feels like romance porn. Like, and
Yeah,
the degree of yearning in this movie that radiates off of obviously Robert Pattinson as Edward, but particularly Kristen Stewart as Bella is so palpable as to almost be physically uncomfortable at point. Like you almost feel like you shouldn't be watching something so private. And yet it
yeah.
was a massive blockbuster meant for the entire world to see.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when I first saw it, I don't know, there's something so captivating. I don't know, it just like really resonated with me. This like super like awkward, like shy girl who is like, I don't know, there's something really like weird about her, but also like charming. And I feel like I don't know if I had like the shyness and the charming bit like coming through in my everyday life. Definitely like the shyness, but I was like, wow, shy girls can be cool. And I feel like, I don't know, just like the yearning of it all. I was like, that's gonna be me. Like just like the level of yearning. I was like, this, I'm destined to be like this in my like teen life and just future.
What is the now, do you, as a filmmaker, I want to hear about your perspective on the way that these movies build toward like 'cause hearing you talk about like the way like sex is involved with Serpent's Skin. There are certainly sex scenes. But I've heard you talk about how it's like it's not really like they're an event in the movie. They're just sort of a natural progression of where the story goes. They further the plot as it is, and they're sort of very representative of the narrative connection that your two central female characters share, their supernatural intimate bond that they have. And this is just really like a process of that manifestation. And you have with the Twilight movies, like the sex scene is such an event in these fucking movies because they spend movie upon movie upon movie, like building up the plant and payoff, speaking of getting to that point. I wanted to hear from you about like as a filmmaker now and how you structure your own work, being influenced by these movies that are building so much architecture of intimacy over the course of even multiple movies.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like almost like the sex scene by the time you see it in Twilight, it's not like the most important thing, like story like wise. It's like they build it up so much, but then like you rewatch those films and it's like, I don't know, the moments of like longing and like the first two films like hit hard, like, when she's in Italy and she's like watching him like in the sun. I'm like that, I don't know, is like more romantic and more like sensual than like the act of them like actually having sex. And I feel like it's just like the chemistry between them is just so palpable and just like so important, and they don't like shy away from that because it's like you could just like have them like making out and like that's hot,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh, like the longing, like the looking, I don't know, like that's important. And I feel like because like the first film spends so much like time doing it, it's like, I don't know, the build up is kind of worth it in each film.
Like there's so much longing in Twilight. It feels like even it feels like even in the act of consummation, they're still longing. Like
Oh yeah,
we're in the middle of it. It's still happening, but we're not done longing yet, even in the throes of passion with the other person.
100%. I mean, just like I feel like she's like still like staring at him like with those like doe eyes like during that scene. It's like, oh yeah, she's still yearning for him.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And there was something that I was thinking about the kind of the arc of how Twilight it has this really kind of unique arc in the cultural consciousness where like when it came out in the 2000s, it was unquestionably a gargantuan deal. These are huge hits. While at the same time, it was almost like as much as it was a success, it was a cultural punchline, sort of like in equal measure. And it was not representative necessarily of the time in which it came out. Like these movies are so agonizingly sincere and there's not a touch of irony within them, which I think feels like a connective tissue between like these kind of inspirational properties that you've talked about with like Charmed and Buffy, these things that began in the mid to late 90s and then go in through the early to mid 2000s. And it feels almost like tonally and in spirit, they are more reflective even of those things that came 10 years before them than they were the very shrewd, ironic, pretty cynical pop culture landscape that they arrived in at the time. And I feel like your works as well, consistently, and especially Serpent's Skin, they're incredibly sincere pieces. And I wanted to hear you just talk about like the resonance of these like incredibly like genuine properties that aren't really trying to pander to anything that they're not. Like they're just completely heart on their sleeve kinds of works.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like that's like one of my favorite things about it. And I feel like even like before the 90s, it feels like very almost like dark shadows in terms of like how honest like the storylines are, like incredibly involving like the craziest like shit and
Hmm.
like the romantic storylines, like it's out of this world, but it's done so with like such a level of sincerity. And it's like I don't know, that's why I kind of struggled to like see like Twilight in the cinema at the moment because I just feel like so many people are laughing at it or like doing things like that. And it's like you can do that in the privacy of your own home, but I'm like, I feel like if you grew up with it or if like you like were around that culture, it's like you could either make fun of it, but the people like watching it weren't laughing at it. I don't know, like they're
Yeah.
two different groups of people. And now you like go to a theater and it's like those people are laughing at, it, but I'm like, I don't know, it's okay to just like watch this work. And of course, like they know it's like silly. Like it's not like I feel like people think these filmmakers aren't like in on how I don't know, outrageous like storylines are. And it's like and I'm like, yeah, like they know some things are supposed to be funny, but like at the end of the day, like the film is still a romance film. Like the longing is like building the romance, and like in 2010 or whatever, like you ate this shit up, and like like it was like taking over the world. And now just because like it's a little uncool, it's like I'm like I don't know, I don't think it's like funny, like necessarily like ha ha. It's
Hmm.
just like it's sweet, and I like that. You don't really see like romance that's just like sincere these days. I
Hmm.
don't know. I feel like every rom-com, even though like the ones that are like throwing back to like Legally Blonde and like that era,
Hmm.
they're in on the joke. And I'm
Yeah.
like even the Devil Wears Prada 2 trailer, it's like, oh, they're in on it. But I'm like, it's still gotta like have like an earnest like storyline about, like the lead character falling in love and like doing all these things and like stuffing up and embarrassing ourselves. Whereas like now it just feels like everyone's like, oh yeah, we have to like laugh at ourselves. And I'm like, I don't know, that kind of takes away the heart and soul of a lot of these movies.
Hmm. Do you feel like within the creative community that you have around you, because it seems like you really have like a coterie of people that have come up with you and developed with you as a filmmaker starting at 16, and you have obviously like high visibility collaborators like Vera Drew, who you guys have been participating in each other's work, and you're all young people. And I like, where do you find your taste in terms of its alignment with sort of like your wider peer demographic? Like, do you feel like you're sort of in step with those around you or sort of around your own age? Or is it like, no, I kind of have to find my enclave of people who don't want to laugh at Twilight as much as I don't want to laugh at Twilight necessarily?
Yeah, I think so. Even in terms of like friendships as well. Like I just like I don't know. I feel like I love Letterboxd, but I feel like sometimes the act of like movie going can almost be seen as like this competitive kind of nature. It's like I want to tell a punchline and get a couple like likes on a Letterboxd rather than I
Yeah.
just want to enjoy this like and like not necessarily like assign numerical value as soon as like the credits roll.
Hmm.
So I think like surrounding myself with people like Vera and like Jane, even though like we all make like different kinds of movies,
Hmm.
it's like especially like Vera is like people's Joker, like it's a comedy, but there's still like very earnest and like sweet moments, and the whole film is like derived from like such a heartfelt story, and like Jane with TV Glow, and like I saw Camp Mesmer, I cut of that recently. It's like there are funny things in that film, but it's still very earnest, and it's not
Hmm.
like I'm laughing at myself because there's no need to. It's like you can just have humor and outrageous things happen, and it's like people should know that it's not a reflection of how you're viewing the material because it's like how can you expect people to take your work seriously if you're like laughing at
Hmm.
it and like hiding behind that like level of irony.
Hmm. Well, that's something too that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of like the Twilight movies, where it's been so fascinating to watch like what kind of like when they arrived on Netflix, and there was sort of this like a renewed sort of ubiquity of it. I remember in conversation because like it was just easy to watch. Like they were right there. If you had the subscription, you could watch it, and it was crazy watching them come onto the service and see this sort of swell of response of like, oh my God, fucking love Twilight, so glad it is here, and like this sincere kind of appraisal of it that it had endeared itself to so many more people, it felt like, in the time that it had come out, while also being a movie that these movies feel so meant to be just put in the meme engine of the way humor and internet processes things now. And it's been so crazy to watch like a sincere love meet the most kind of irony pilled form of appreciation and like memes and jokes. And I going to Coachella a few years ago and seeing flags on people's campsites of like Bella and Jacob with like the "Where you been, Loca?" Like the way
My
that it
God.
like permeates conversation with an appreciation but fueled by jokes of this thing that is never laughing at itself. Maybe during vampire baseball it is, but it feels like to appreciate Twilight in the present feels like this microcosm of like the dissonance that it takes to appreciate something genuine in a landscape of poison and just like constant lulls.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, that's why I also really like Mortal Instruments, like City of Bones, like that
Hmm.
stuff like that, because I feel like it never really like it's popular, but it never really reached like outside of like the people who appreciate it. So it's
Yeah.
like there are people like who still like are like, oh, that's stupid, but like for the most part, the people like who like watch it and read the work or like just love the sincerity of it. Like you look at like I don't know, like the fan edits that come up on my reels compared to like the Twilight ones, which are like often like jokingly ones, and then you see the
Yeah.
Mortal Instruments ones, and it's like, oh, this was nice to like have like two gay warlocks in love and like have a weird wedding or whatever, and it's like just like a sweet like montage, and I'm like just like the difference between like I don't know, I feel like Twilight was so popular and Mortal Instruments just never reached like that height, so it's always I don't know, the crowd has just been like better appreciative, I guess.
Yeah. And I something I was thinking about too, like I really appreciated hearing you say one of your interviews that like the paranormal romance section of the library was like huge for you when you were younger. And I wanted to hear you just like expound on like what it was about that stuff that just like super spoke to you. And you know, I feel like it is rare that people are start making feature films when they're so close to the influence of what they take in when they're young. So you're like absorbing these things in like fraught, sweaty teenage tween years and going straight into making stories of your own. And I wanted to hear about like that love of that section and then basically going right in the middle of your teenage years to putting your own stories on film and what the sort of like feed into your palette of inspiration to your palette of creation that was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was. Like I just like I remember like going to the library like one day and just like feeling so like drawn in by that section. I mean, I would always like walk around like, look at different books, like new arrivals or whatever, but there was something, I don't know whether it was like the artwork or
Mhm.
just like I don't know, it just felt so like magical. And I guess like I'd always liked like fairy tales like growing up, like the
Mhm.
Grimm brothers and like stuff like that. And I guess it almost like felt like the next logical step. And then I mean, Twilight was very popular, but then like the other ones like Fallen and like Vampire Academy and
Hmm.
like
I
so
was
many that
big
I
on
just don't
Vampire
remember.
Academy. That
I love
was
that.
I was
Yeah.
older than the demographic of those books, but it really got those really got their teeth in me for sure.
Oh yeah. And even like Diversion and stuff like that. There's just something, I don't know, that like I feel like in that time just like speaks to you as like almost like an outsider. I feel like it's
Mm.
almost like queer adjacent. I guess like having the protagonist like often be like this like shy, nerdy outsider girl, then like she's like destined for like greatness, or like a man sweeps her off of her feet, and like her like hometown doesn't understand her, but like the rest of the guys and like the vampires do or whatever. I don't know. There's
Hmm.
something so like special and like I don't know. It's very like fantasy kind of
Yeah.
vibe. It's like getting drawn up and like swept up in your own fantasy. And then yeah, I guess like going to like making movies. I mean like my first one, my short film was like a Stephen King Dollar Baby film, and it wasn't like supernatural-ish. It was more like
Hmm.
a weird like drama about like toxic masculinity. So I don't know. And then like going into like my first feature, which was like vampires and like drag and stuff like that, it was very much I don't know. Like I feel like Twilight and stuff had like meant a lot to me, but like Buffy was like from such a young age, like it
Right.
almost didn't feel like a recent influence. It kind of just felt like something that'd been like around my whole life. And same
Right.
with
Like
like,
there wasn't a you without Buffy, baby.
yeah, literally, I was like, I don't know, I literally cannot remember a time where like Buffy like wasn't in my life.
Uh-huh.
And same with Charmed, like it just felt like always like around me as such a young child. Not that like my parents watched it, I don't know, I just like found ways to like surround myself with it. And then
Hmm.
same with like drag, like I just loved Drag Race so much, and it kind of was just like the first feature was like culminating like everything I loved about culture at
Hmm.
that moment in life, and it was like I want to put it all into one movie.
coming into Serpent's Skin, because I feel like the thing you hear so much about with people at their first features is it's kind of like there was sort of a boundlessness to what that they could do in some ways, because it's like, listen, I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know what was off limits. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to try that. What is it like coming, because like your movies are fueled by so much, like there has to be so much creative problem solving with the kind of movies that you do. These are small budget productions. These are short shooting schedules. I'm having to assume that there is a lot of creative Tetrising to bring the things to
Oh
life that
yeah.
you want to do. But is what is the sort of what is the mentality like going into shoot a feature now when you know so much more, you know the things that go wrong, but you still have to like have the optimism to push it through on like a tiny budget in a short time frame. Like, do you still have that sort of verve going in that you had in your first feature, even though you're a seasoned veteran in your early 20s? Like, how does it feel going in to start shooting now compared to what it did when you're making first movies, 16, 17?
I feel like it's honestly like more stressful now just because
Okay.
it's like I don't know what I feel like maybe like I was younger and I was like, oh, especially so bad I was like literally like 15, 16 and I was like, oh, it's gonna like have to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I was like
yeah.
I was just like so determined and I was like, it's not gonna not happen. And that was crazy as well. I was like, we're just coming out of the pandemic and like, we had actors like have issues with like lockdown and stuff like that. And it was like having to replace someone. But I was like, there's no way that like it wasn't gonna happen. I don't know. I
Right.
just like willed it into existence so hard and like it was 7 days. I was like, we just have to shoot it. And I was like, it was crazy. And I feel like even like the other ones, I was like, I don't know. It was more like community and like driven. And whereas like Serpent Skin, it was kind of like there was like international people involved and kind
Wow.
of just like I don't know, the stress. I think I just want more like stress on myself now as
Mhm.
well. Like having been like, oh, we've done it in like 7 days, we have to like do it to this level and like this time frame. I don't know. I think just like the way my brain works now, I think I'm just like inherently like more stressed about it because like there are expectations from like the people I've worked with, like not to let them down and like the
Hmm.
camera people and things like that. Yeah.
That's actually, I would like to follow up on that just a little bit of like you make so many movies and you do such a good job. And when you start out, like if anybody starts out, like it's like, meh, no one's watching. I hope someone watches, but no one's watching. And it must be cool to have like Shudder be like, we're gonna platform Alice Maio Mackay's movies. And like, okay, awesome. And you got into a film festival. Oh, super. And that's a lot of expectation for anybody to deal with, let alone like it feels like it ramped up really fast for you comparatively, because even if it's a bunch of features, like like it's still a very compressed period of time. And how is the expectations part of that going? How are you doing?
It's like it's this like weird stressful thing, especially like I don't know, like getting into like a dream festival like Fremantle Fantasia, right? And it's like for me like that's like the top that's like the best deal. And it's like, oh, then you make another one and it's like if I don't get it. Do you know like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like you're not like I don't know, expected to get in. I feel like there are festivals I've definitely gotten once and then not a second time. And it's kind of like, oh, like why this feature, not that feature? And
Hmm.
like I don't know, then I like kind of like psychoanalyze it and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, like was like the last one like not good enough? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I feel like the scale that I'm like making films on is still so like minuscule and it's like so micro budget that I'm like if I'm not like passionate about like the films that I'm making, like I'm just not gonna like be making that film. Like it takes so
Yeah.
much like effort and just like the like sheer energy and like willpower of like getting everyone together in the same place. So I'm like at the end of the day, I'm not gonna like make a film for a festival to like meet an expectation. It's like I want to make the film that I want to see. And if people one person watches that, I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping this doesn't like play into like the pressure thing, but I was like, as I was thinking about your work and reading conversations with you and reading about like the appreciation of like of fantasy and romance and with being as prolific as you are and just like the powering through and such a distinct fingerprint of the kind of work that you have, like watching a movie of yours feels like a movie of yours and having such a clear like artistic point of view and aesthetic. Like the person I kind of kept going back to, I was like, Alice kind of makes me kind of remind me of Taylor Swift. I feel you are the I feel you are perhaps the Taylor Swift
Oh
of
wow.
extremely independent genre cinema. You are a young basically a young songwriting virtuoso, but your songwriting it's in the form of cinema. And I don't know, it just like the kind of hard on its sleeve and the sort of preoccupation with romantic narrative. I don't know. Is that an asshole thing to tell you? Was your sitting there being like, I don't know, it's kind of a lot to have to live up to my last movie?
No, I kind of like hearing that. And also, like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like people are very judgmental when it comes to like people like turning output out and like obviously like putting their political beliefs aside, but people like Taylor Swift and like Tate McRae and like even like
Sure.
Jesse Murphy and stuff like that. I'm like the output is so it's like a lot to begin with because it's like if you're not coming from like I don't know a world where like everyone gives you like I don't come from like a filmmaking family or filmmaking
Yeah.
background. Like I've never had government support. So like why would
Yeah, even with the
people
funding of like Screen Australia is a
yeah.
primary funding engine for a lot of what happens there, but that's not how your work has been made.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, someone's got to like make the work to like show that like I don't know that I am like a filmmaker and like that I can like make a movie successfully and kind of like create, people that want to watch my work. So I'm
Hmm.
like I don't know, like I feel like when people are like, oh, like that person's like putting out too many albums or too many movies, it's like, yeah, because it's like you kind of have to like throw everything like personal at the wall and see like what kind of sticks, like T
Hmm.
Blockers I made. And I didn't expect anyone to like see that film, but then I like, I'm still like recording intros for like people like to screen it like randomly around the world, and I'm like, that's crazy. Like that was 4 years ago, and like that's like the one that like stuck. So I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of just like.
It feels like that, just from the outside perception, it feels like that was a sort of like threshold changing moment with T
Oh
blockers.
yeah,
Okay.
100%, which is like crazy because I'm like I didn't think a film called like T-Blockers like would do you know what I mean? It's like out of all the films like that like are still playing today, I'm like that's crazy. Like that's the one. Like I really did not like I even remember just like telling people and like my friends and stuff. I was like, no one's gonna see that one. Like no one's gonna screen it. And like that one like had the best festival run I think I've ever had. So I'm like I don't know.
One of the things I find just most interesting talking to filmmakers about is how you don't get to choose the world that your movie lands in. Like
Yeah.
movies that could take you years to make. Movies maybe it took somebody 10 years, maybe it took them 7, maybe it took them 2. They still don't get to pick the way the world is going to be when that thing comes out. And if they're even a slightly different version of themselves by the time the thing arrives. And so like you're just down here making movies in Australia, and you're like, yeah, this is a movie I made, and I make movies. That's like I've made a career as a director, and then suddenly there's this thing that's like, no, we are lauding you. It's like the arrival of, so it's like an overnight. It's like overnight, bitch. That's like movie number 3. What are we talking about overnight? Like, do you know how much work has gone into this? And just the way I don't know, it's just crazy to think of how long and hard people do work for just the world to by chance be ready to receive someone on their terms and their creation.
Yeah, and I feel like also like there would be like no T blockers if there wasn't like movie 1 and 2. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I had to like get to that like arrival. If you don't like the first two, whatever. If you like the first one but not the second, it's like I still like made those movies and like I learned a lot and like I grew a lot as a creative and I told the story I wanted to tell like in that moment. And it's like like I had to get that to get to like movie 3, and it's like really interesting as well, especially like being able to like be present like when Serpent's is screening and stuff like that. People will be like, "Oh, like Bad Girl Boogie is like my like favorite one of your films," and it's like,
Uh,
I never hear that. It's like I don't know, it's so weird. I don't know, it's like different in my mind when it's like then people have like different favorite films. Like even if it's like one person, someone's like, "Oh, so Training Panic's like my favorite," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't think anyone would like watch that one." I don't know,
uh-huh.
it's weird, and like hearing like how different people. I don't know, react and like respond, especially the people that have seen like all my work. It's kind of
Mhm.
weird and surreal. I'm like, wow, that's nice.
That's nice. Something I've really enjoyed reading about in reading about Serpent Skin and you talking about it is how much Meatloaf you were listening to and like the Bad Out of Hell albums when you're writing this script, and you kind of Easter egg Meatloaf at the record shop where our main character works in Serpent Skin, and obviously a key part of the Twilight experience is also the music of Twilight.
Yeah.
At my own wedding to my wife in a pizza parlor in East Hollywood, as my friend was officiating, leading up to the vows. We were definitely playing Flightless Bird as our wind up song for us giving our little dedications to each other. So please tell me about the music of Twilight. I just want to hear any thoughts you might have on it, and then how music factors into like you said, you didn't necessarily come into this as a filmmaker, and then you came out of like theater first. I wanted to hear about that as the artistic insert into your process as well.
Yeah, just like Paramore and like Linkin Park and like I don't know, everything about the soundtrack is just so perfect. I feel
It's
like I
so
don't know
perfect.
if like one album could just like encapsulate like teen angst and like just the vibe of like growing up and like whatever aspect. I'm like Twilight #1 would do that so I don't know perfectly. It's like nothing is I don't know can compare to a soundtrack like that, and I feel like yeah, I mean, like I listen to like a lot of Meatloaf and like writing that and just like I love music and I feel like I grew up and I went to like a music school for like
Mm,
classical and jazz, which is like so unrelated. But I don't know, I've always just loved the way that music plays into your life and especially
mm,
like it's kind of I mean for me at least, it's like always like there, I wake up, I put it on music, I'm walking to the shop, I've got music on, like it's kind of just like literally the soundtrack to your life. So it's
mm,
like when going into film and like kind of like curating that and like working with like my composer and things like that, music has always been like the forefront
mm.
of like the way that I like to edit and like the way that I like to write. It's just very ingrained in my brain and just like the emotional response to music and just like how like one song in a film can kind of change the way that you feel completely like about said scene. It's like, if you have like if there was like a different song, the Twilight Wedding, I feel like it would, be flop, people wouldn't
I
still
think
talk
you're no,
about
I
it.
think you're completely right. I think you're completely right about that.
So just like it's such like a powerful tool, and one that like I grew up, like lucky enough to like be able to like play the piano and stuff like that, and like the bassoon, and like have this like appreciation, just like the music history as well. So yeah,
Well, coming up through a school that had a music focus to it, and with theater being a part of your artistic experience before film, why was film the one that ended up being one where like actually this is where I'm most effectively channeling? What was it about that as a medium?
I think just that like I love theater, but it's not a very accessible
Mm,
like media to like I mean to get into I mean film isn't either, but it's like theater just feels like so otherworldly and it's like it kind of lives. I mean what's so great about it is it's like live art, but it only like lives for a short amount of time and it's like I grew up in Adelaide, which is not like I mean there's like some great theater, but it's a very small
mm,
town and like not a lot of art that I wanted to see was like created growing up here. So it's
mm,
like movie and TV was like my escape, and it just felt like it just really was my whole world, especially
mm.
like during school and stuff. I would watch like TV in the back of like math class or something like that, and I'd be like taken to like another world. So I feel like that kind of just like won me over a little bit. I would love to like direct theater and like do theater stuff. It just didn't seem accessible, and still I'm like, I don't know how I would go about it. Whereas film, not that it felt like doable, it just felt like something that meant like the world to me, and so I wanted to pursue that with like all my energy.
How did you force will the film career? How the fuck did you do that? How the hell have you pulled this off so many times?
Yeah, I really don't know. I feel like it was weird because like I grew up in LA, which is like a lot of things film here, but like there's not like a lot at the time there was like not a lot of creatives like making their own stuff. It was like it's very like
Oh,
tax credit kind of stuff. And I
right.
remember that was like just like local TV productions. I would just like get on Facebook Messenger and like message them and be like, "Hey, can I get like work experience?" Because I also like didn't really love school. Like I loved music, but like outside of
Hmm.
that, I didn't really love the vibe. So I was just kind of like using it to get out of school. And I remember like I was like a body double for like this like zombie like TV show, and I was like getting like my guts like eaten out, like lying on like this like cold muddy floor, and like I was like a hand double at one point as well for that show, and I was like digging holes for like set and stuff like that. So I was like really like willing to literally like do whatever on a film set
Uh-huh.
because just like meeting people and like seeing productions like at that scale, it's like I even now I'm like getting on a set and like seeing people work. I feel like so lucky and like grateful to do. It's like at that time having like no prior like I guess like idea of the film world, seeing that set and like that level of like production, just like being on there, even if I was like digging dirt or whatever, I was like, damn, that's
Hmm.
like really cool. And I learned a lot. And then I kind of just like met people from each of those sets. And then I was really bold and I got like the Stephen King Dollar Baby short film thing. And I was just like, hey, do you want to help me make the film? And then they like agreed randomly. So I feel like it's just like literally just like me being so bold as to like ask the question and like
Yeah.
ask to be in those spaces. Yeah.
That's a really important thing to highlight of like that like look, I just got myself on sets like obviously like the Philippou brothers have found great success with like Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, and they obviously come from like YouTube, but they also like they were, I believe they were on the set of the Babadook, like they were putting time in doing sort of whatever jobs it seems like they could come across on sets for real productions that were near them in Australia. Like they're it all praise be to the YouTube creator background of like making something happen. Shouts out to you like Markiplier out there and your huge success this year. But it is I feel like it shouldn't be overlooked that like, yeah, and then I got myself on a set with a whole crew and saw how that worked, and that like helped foment me into the filmmaker that I could become.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really like would not be like, I don't know, the filmmaker or even just like the person I am without like having so like many formative experiences, like just on those sets. Like, even like if they're completely different like worlds from like what I was inspired by, like what I wanted to create. It's just like being on those sets like taught me like, I don't know, kind of like everything I know, and then like being like able to see like just a film in motion kind of in person. There's like nothing really like it, I don't think.
What is it, going from like feature to feature and sort of like taking the lessons of each previous one to the next one? What is the biggest thing that you're taking from Serpent's Skin into the next into number seven that I kind of would assume that you're working on? I've heard you mention that you're working on a next feature. How is it that how do you feel sort of more equipped going forward now than you maybe even were like incrementally over time? What is like a thing you're like, no, I'm actually pretty fucking confident about these sets of things now.
I think just like trusting like I don't know like my vision for the film and then also like trusting the people in their departments fully because I feel like
Mhm.
I don't know there's always like people who are going to be like oh I don't know about that and like let's do it that way and like obviously like I love collaboration on set like I'm always like interested like after we get like one take to like hear you know if the actors want to try something or like the DOP like wants to move something around but I feel like
Mhm.
just like really trusting like my vision from like script to like
Mhm.
editing because like at the end of the day like you know, it's like my vision and like just like being able to communicate that clearly as well. Because I feel like I'm not like the loudest person in the room, you know, like I'm quite shy and like reserved, especially like in like bigger group settings. So
Mhm.
I feel like, especially as I've grown up as a person as well as a filmmaker, just like being able to like communicate and like
Mhm.
express my ideas to like the fullest amount and like not letting, I don't know, any like barrier kind of hold me back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of a zag, but it's something that I did want to make sure and bring up in terms of the Twilight aspect of it, which is there is something so like obviously your films are very fantastically queer authorship. That tends to happen. What we have in Twilight is perhaps something so agonizingly heterosexual that it's like the snake is eating its tail and becoming almost like almost a work of queer cinema. It like what is canonically queer more than longing itself. And so I had to know Twilight is queer cinema? Thoughts? Anything from your
Um, you know what? I think so. I mean, I guess like the
And this
people
is
it
coming from a
resonates with
millennial who grew up with starved for queer content, so they could fucking find this shit anywhere they had to.
anywhere.
You not necessarily having the same experience as me, but I still wanted to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I feel like we can like label it as like queer cinema. Like it does like you know it's like it's Mormon culture. Like then like it comes so like full circle around to like having like Paramore on the soundtrack. I don't know. I feel like it doesn't really like get gayer than that. Like it's so straight. It just has to be like gay. And I mean like even Alice and like it's just like it feels I don't know. Like even the characters kind of feel like a little bit like queer family at times and like you know it's like weird this like weird found family. It's like, are they family? Are they fucking? I don't know. Like it's just like a
All of the men feel like men with beards. They
yeah.
feel like very pretty men who have beard girlfriends sharing this eternal mortal coil with them.
Oh, for sure.
You can't tell me that Confederate soldier with 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 Nikki Reed is a totally straight boy living in that household with his curly blonde hair.
I always forget about the Confederate soldier part, and then it's just like it really just like they slam it in your face, and it's like, wow, there's literally like no need for that to happen. But thank you.
It really like they're just such incredible films to think about because they feel like they should have been impossible to make when they were made, but they could only have been made when they were made because also like it's not like there was a the two majorly successful like YA franchises of Hunger Games and Twilight kind of makes it seem like there was this YA franchise period where everything was a YA franchise and kind of everything was, but almost none of them were really successful
Oh
except for
yeah.
those two. And so it's like it couldn't have come before it. Getting it made now feels ludicrous. They were a sensation at the time they came out, but they were not regarded highly critically at the time they came out. They feel like fever dreams. Like experiencing Twilight now and thinking of the fact that it ever came into existence feels like a bunch of people who were fucking drunk at the time and were
Oh
like,
yeah.
we should see this through to the end. It doesn't feel like it could be real, which is, I don't know. They just feel like the most surreal experience of cinema watching them.
Yeah, and I feel like if you have to like compare the two, I mean like I liked reading the Hunger Games, but then like recently like I rewatched them with my friend and I think like they're just like the most boring films. Like I generally like I don't like I mean sure like Twilight is like long and like New Moon is like insanely long, but I'm like, at least like the
Insanely.
yearning like builds to something in the end, whereas like Hunger Games, I feel like part like one of like Mockingjay, they're literally like just in a room talking about things that had happened or that like were about to happen. And I did like we did it like at a marathon at a cinema and I was like, this is I want to leave. Like I was like, I don't know how as a child I found this entertaining. At least Breaking Dawn Part One is like, oh, it's a dream or whatever, but I'm like, yeah, but at least something happened in the dream. Like Mockingjay is just talking. And I love talking, I love theater, but I'm like, talk about something interesting. It's like just like I don't know. It was so boring.
No, the last time I went through the Twilight movies, I forgot I had put things in New Moon. I put them in Eclipse because
Oh.
New Moon is so long. I thought full chunks of what happened in New Moon happened in Eclipse because that was movie three, and surely we had already got onto the third movie by the time these things start happening. It was like, oh my God, we are in the road trip in Italy right now with Bella having a panic attack and Alice looking like she's about to rob a bank in Italy. They're racing through the Italian countryside. Absolute cinema. Insanity.
I would like watch it like even if it was like longer. I think it should be longer. Director's cut release should be now.
The Snyder cut treatment for every installment of Twilight. Okay,
Yeah,
well, I
and then they
guess
short on like the Hunger Games. They really go back and just, like make them one movie for me.
a super cut of Hunger Games and every Ari Aster cut of Twilight.
Yeah,
Well, I guess my final question to you would be to wrap up. Is there a Bella that you feel like you are more aligned with in your life now? Or is Bella more like a character on the shelf of the past? Like where are you with so many Bellas to choose from throughout like the arc of her story? Where do you most align with her now?
I feel like I don't know. I feel like before like touring with the movie, I would be like maybe like Eclipse, like Breaking Dawn Bella. But I feel like after all that like flying and just like social energy, I feel like back to like New Moon, like end of Twilight One Bella. That's where I'm sitting at the moment.
Does it we have to wait till New Moon till we get to the rotating seasons of her wasting away at a computer for a year longing for Edward, or is that
Yeah.
first movie? Or is that
I
all
feel
the way in New Moon?
I feel like there's like a glimpse of that in number one, but they really like take it like to the next level when she's like waiting for Edward, and like the second one, it's just like so many seasons pass. It's like get out of the chair, like let's move. She doesn't move, so that's fine.
Get out of the chair. Well, I you have earned time in the chair if that is what you wish after the roadshow of your movie, getting yet another feature out into the world. And I'm just so grateful for you taking time out of your perhaps recuperating period, perhaps for creative period, to chat with us here on Feeling Dean today. So thank you so much, Alice, for coming on the show and for bringing this most important work of fiction alongside your own to discuss today.
Of course, thank you so much.
Maximum Fun.
A worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows
supported
directly
by you.